Some more on all of this. Joining us, Republican Senator James Risch of Idaho. He's a member of the Intelligence and Foreign Relations Committees, along with presidential candidate Marco Rubio, whom Risch has endorsed. Thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you. On
this whole issue of whether or not whether Marco Rubio had made the suggestion that maybe there was classified information that was coming out. Have you looked into that, whether or not Ted Cruz may inadvertently have released any classified information?
Well, you know, all of us that give these kind of interviews and speak publicly about classified issues have to be very, very careful about what they say. You hear so much, a lot of times you can't remember whether it was in a classified setting or not. One has to be cautious. Over the years, I've seen some pretty bad blunders, really, where people have stumbled and given out classified information, and it can be dangerous. Although there's a lot of classified stuff.
Was any classified information released last night?
Well, if I'm going to let the committee make that decision. I really don't want to wade into that. But there was a discussion on certain numbers, and when you get down to that specific on numbers involving a program or a system, you got to be really careful because most of that information is classified.
Well, I'm going to play the clip. I'm going to play the clip of what Senator Ted Cruz said and then what Senator Rubio had said, and then we'll discuss. Listen to this.
Sure.
What he knows is that the old program covered 20 to 30% of phone numbers to search for terrorists. The new program covers nearly 100%. That gives us greater ability to stop acts of terrorism. And he knows that that's the case.
Dana, may I interject?
Senator,
let me be very careful in answering this, because I don't think national television in front of 15 million people is the place to discuss classified information.
You want to button up this little exchange for us? Because you're privy to all those intelligence.
I am. And the only place I've heard those numbers discussed is in classified settings. So I think Marco was on solid ground saying, I'm not going to confirm or deny the numbers that have just been laid out. I think that was appropriate.
It's a sensitive subject, even though the chairman, Richard Burr, and the ranking Democrat, Dianne Feinstein, say there's no investigation.
They don't want to get involved in this.
They're not. Maybe somebody else would get involved?
They don't want to get involved.
But just to be precise, what Senator Cruz said, was that information classified?
I have never heard those types of numbers discussed, and I'm neither can confirm or deny the numbers that he's laid out. I've never heard them discussed other than in a classified setting. My understanding is the numbers were classified.
Were classified. All right, let's talk a little about Donald Trump. He says he wants to shut down parts of the internet, saying he'd be open to closing areas, these are his words, where we are at war with somebody. Is that even feasible?
Probably from a technological standpoint, it may be feasible on a very narrow, targeted basis. I thought the discussion was kind of loose. I thought it was very broad. If they took specific instances and talked about it, I think it would have been more helpful to the American people as to what they stood for. There's been instances where, when in wartime, where the internet has been used and has been shut down. The best example of that is when Russia invaded Georgia. They shut down the entire internet in Georgia. I suspect when you get into a heated war, you're going to see more of that. Where it's a Cold War, you may start seeing some very pointed disruptions or taking down of certain things that happen on the internet.